Join me and Dave as we spend the next 4 days kayaking through the West Highlands of Scotland. We have 2 fully loaded boats with enough supplies for several nights of wild camping, a couple of home-cooked meals courtesy of Dave, and a few beers to chug after a full day's paddling. Our trip begins on Loch Shiel. Our ingress point is a short section of river at Glenfinnan. We then paddle down Loch Shiel over the next 2 days, joining onto the River Shiel, which then leads on to Loch Moidart.
Here we go, we're off ski.
Yeah. Sorted. Yeah, that's neat, that is.
Once we had left the short river section and headed onto the loch, we paddled round to view the Glenfinnan monument. It is a Category A listed monument, erected in 1814 and dedicated to the Scottish Highlanders who fought in the Jacobite army during the Jacobite Rising of 1745. We then headed down the loch in search of our first night's camp.
Huh. Nice.
As we ventured down the loch, we passed several salmon farms floating in the bays along the shoreline.
You on about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
Is it being washed up? Right. Surely
It's hard. Mate, it looks like it might have snapped. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Piece of art.
Yeah.
Sell it for 20 grand. We'll take it back with us. Cracking.
Not bad, is it?
Upon arrival, we got to work setting up camp. Tonight's camp was in a beautiful spot, so I sent up the drone for a better look at our surroundings. I decided to break out my twig stove to boil some water for a brew. However, the weather soon closed in, forcing me into my tent and switching to my gas stove. As I was now bound to my tent due to the weather, I got to work on suspending my tablet using the waterproof case for my map to enable comfortable viewing of some films I had previously downloaded prior to the trip. After some trial and error, the finished design had the desired effect. However, within 10 minutes of the film I got sleepy, turned it off and went to bed.
There is. That's taken about half an hour to get going. We're looking all right there.
We set out on day 2 a little late, as the weather first thing wasn't great, but as it passed through, leaving only the occasional shower here and there, we got back out on the water. As the day progressed, we were hit again with some heavy downpours, and upon passing a lovely little beach area, we decided to call in, set up a tarp and have a hot drink.
It's the Hastings.
Once the weather cleared up, we continued on our journey.
There we are, little island, working our way down Loch Shiel. It's this beautiful little island. And work your way up this little ravine. A lovely little camping spot in the middle there, overlooking where we've just paddled. That's fantastic. See what Mr. Hastings thinks of it.
Yeah, it's cool. Cool, isn't it?
Yes. Probably dazzler.
You just coming here on your own on this trip?
Camp it. Where at camp.
Very nice.
And had to walk up here, and there's no real flat, but you get a nice view down the Loch like.
Hang about, it's gone nice.
I'm not sure how clear it will be on video. The video footage does not do it justice. But as we were floating down the loch, I spotted an unusual shape within the top of a small tree right beside the water's edge. Now, neither me nor Dave are bird experts, and our identification may not be correct, but we are pretty certain we had come upon a white-tailed sea eagle.
That's an eagle, that is, isn't it?
I can see its white tail. Does that look like a white tail?
Yeah, that's...
Yeah,
There he goes.
White-tailed eagle. Whoa, well spotted, Henry.
He told the sun to come out as well, didn't he?
Yeah, it did, yeah, the rest of that.
What a guy.
A little further down the loch, we found ourselves in a spot with a rather impressive echo, which I personally found very entertaining.
Hello! Woo! Absolutely no one around. Listen to that echo. Hello!
Is anyone there?
No! Woo!
As we were looking for our second night's camp, we pulled up on a very picturesque shoreline with a mixture of coniferous and deciduous trees. Sadly, there were multiple signs up expressing no disturbance, as it was a protected area for black-throated divers. As myself and Dave are big advocates for nature, the last thing we want is to be a nuisance. So we got back in our boats and crossed to the other side of the loch, where we found a suitable spot to camp.
End of day 2, and we're going to have chilli and rice and Henry's going to produce a beer in a minute. He's already had one. There was a can this morning on the floor. Get that quiet. Oh,
Get one of these down here.
cheers me old fruit. There's our little setup. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Tonight's camp looked out upon still waters and a setting sun, so up went the drone to fully savour the beauty of this evening.
Day 3. Red or brown, Henry?
Brown, please.
On the morning of day 3, after having a lovely breakfast with a spectacular view, we set off once more down the loch.
We're away.
Paddle over to the side.
Yeah.
We weren't paddling long before we happened upon St. Finnan's Isle, also known as the Green Isle. The island became an ancient burial place for the chiefs of Moidart and a site of pilgrimage for the penitent. The burial ground still contains many ancient crosses, as well as the remains of an old church, ruined since the 1700s. The date of erection of the church is unknown, but possibly mid-16th century. Upon the altar of the long since ruined chapel stood an ancient bell. There was a sign on the island with a picture of the bell, and sadly it seems that someone has taken it. The sign provides some more in-depth information on the bell's history. Its current location is unknown. We didn't spend too long on the Green Isle. Before long we were back on the water, heading towards the end of Loch Shiel. Just before beginning the river section, we stopped off for another break. I was thankful for this, as I hadn't had the best night's sleep. Getting onto the river was a nice change of pace, as the current was helping us along, and I was more than happy to let it take me. The river Shiel narrows as it flows from Loch Shiel to the sea at Loch Moidart, Spanning this narrow chasm is the Old Bridge, a picturesque single-arched bridge erected in 1804. We were coming to the end of the River Shiel, where it meets with Loch Moidart. Loch Moidart is a tidal loch. When the tide is in, you can float straight through onto the loch. When we arrived, the tide had gone out. Rather than waiting hours for the tide to come back in, we pulled the boats out of the water and decided to be heroic for 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, beautiful. Where are you, you pesky little thing? There you are. Thought you could get away, did you? I don't think so, son. Get you back in there, like that.
Thankfully, there was just about enough water left in Loch Moidart, even with the tide out, so we hopped back in the water and headed for our next destination, the castle. Castle Tirham is one of the most remarkable castles on Scotland's western seaboard and, given the nature of the site and Scotland's part in Dark Age and medieval European history, is a monument of European dimension and importance. Once a centre of power of the medieval lordship of the Isles and later of the MacDonalds of Clanranald, it was burnt on the orders of the last chief of the direct line when he set off to join the doomed Jacobite rising of 1715. It is very striking within the surrounding landscape, with a great outward view of Loch Moidart. Once back in the water, we headed through the loch towards the North Channel, which then leads out onto the ocean. We got a little ways up before stopping for our third night's camp. Tonight's camp was set a lot further back from the water than our previous two spots. It was really nice to be amongst the trees. I sent the drone back up to capture this evening's surroundings. While enjoying 2 burgers, courtesy of Chef Dave, we finished off our remaining beers.
Banging, cheers mate. Got gherkins?
Yeah.
I also took note of our current location. Throughout the trip I had been marking where we had camped for future reference, as well as making note of other interesting areas on the map that looked to be worth a visit on a different occasion. I dare say I could spend the rest of my life trying to explore the vastness of the Highlands and not succeed. The original plan for the trip was to continue up the North Channel onto the ocean. However, by day 4 the weather was not on our side, so we cut the trip short. Despite not finishing the planned circuit, I still had a fantastic time immersing myself deep within the undisturbed wilderness, and had a great time exploring with my mate.